Imagine waking up one day and finding your home, your city, your entire country submerged underwater. Sounds unreal, right? But this is the stark reality that island nations like the Maldives might soon face. Picture this. The globe, our home, is wrapped in a vast swirling blanket of oceans. These waters, while pivotal for life, are also a rising menace. The phenomenon we're talking about is the rise in sea levels, a calamitous byproduct of our changing climate. As the world's temperature gradually increases, polar ice cap melt accelerates, pouring billions of gallons of water into our seas. This, coupled with the thermal expansion of seawater, is causing a steady, relentless increase in ocean levels. Now, this isn't just a hypothetical threat or a distant problem. It's happening here, it's happening now, and it's happening fast. Enter the Maldives, an archipelago of 26 atolls, specks of tropical paradise in the vast Indian Ocean. Its highest point above sea level, a mere 8 feet. The average? Even less, at just about 4 feet. With over 80% of its land area lying below 3.5 feet, the Maldives is particularly vulnerable to even the smallest rise in sea levels. The consequences are daunting. We're talking about the potential displacement of hundreds of thousands of people, the loss of unique biodiversity, the destruction of vibrant coral reefs, and the erasure of a rich cultural heritage. And the Maldives isn't alone in this. There are other low-lying island nations like Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Marshall Islands, who are at an equally perilous crossroads. So the question arises, what is the fate of these island nations? What happens when the land that has cradled generations, that has been home to unique traditions and vibrant communities, is swallowed by the sea? What happens when the last palm tree on the last atoll disappears beneath the ocean's surface? As alarming as this all sounds, it's not all doom and gloom. There are potential solutions, strategies, and initiatives that can help us navigate these troubled waters. So, what does the future hold for the Maldives and other island nations? Let's delve deeper into this. The Maldives, a tropical paradise loved by tourists, is grappling with a side of climate change that most of us don't see. This archipelago, made up of 26 atolls and over 1,000 islands, is on the front line of climate change. Its average ground level is only about 4 feet above sea level, making it the lowest lying country on Earth. A rise of just a few inches in sea level can have devastating impacts on the Maldives and its population. Already, some islands are feeling the effects. The island of Kandalhudu, for example, was abandoned after the devastating tsunami in 2004, a disaster made worse by rising sea levels. The island of Vilufushi had to be evacuated and rebuilt higher up after the same tsunami. These are not isolated incidents, but harbingers of what's to come if sea levels continue to rise. The threat to the Maldivian population is twofold. First, there's the direct threat to their homes and lives. As sea levels rise, more and more land becomes uninhabitable. The people of the Maldives could become climate refugees, forced to abandon their homes and seek shelter elsewhere. The second threat is to the Maldivian economy. The Maldives economy relies heavily on tourism, with stunning beaches and vibrant coral reefs attracting tourists from around the world. But as sea levels rise, these beaches are eroded, and the coral reefs, which are sensitive to changes in water temperature and acidity, are dying. This not only threatens the natural beauty that attracts tourists, but also the fish populations that many locals rely on for their livelihood. Despite these challenges, the people of the Maldives are not giving up. They are exploring a range of adaptation strategies, including building artificial islands and seawalls, and even looking at the possibility of floating cities. The Maldives is a stark example of how rising sea levels can affect a nation, but they are not alone in this fight. The threat of rising sea levels is not confined to the Maldives alone. Other island nations and even some of the world's largest coastal cities are also at risk. Indeed, the threat is real and it's global. Our planet is interconnected, and when it comes to climate change, no one is truly isolated. Other low-lying island nations like Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Marshall Islands are also grappling with the same perilous predicament. These islands are literally sinking, their land disappearing beneath the relentless surge of the sea. But it's not just these small island nations that are under threat. Some of the world's largest coastal cities are also in the firing line. Imagine New York, Shanghai, or Mumbai, with their combined population of over 50 million people, being threatened by the encroaching sea. These metropolises are economic powerhouses, cultural melting pots, and home to millions. Yet, they could face a future of chronic flooding, or worse, total submersion. Rising sea levels could lead to mass displacement, with tens of millions forced to leave their homes. We're talking about an unprecedented migration crisis, with huge social, economic, and political implications. The world's food supply could also be affected, with fertile coastal regions and key agricultural lands at risk of becoming salt-soaked and barren. But let's not forget about the ecological impact. The inundation of coastal areas would disrupt and destroy diverse ecosystems. The loss of these habitats would not only reduce biodiversity but also undermine the natural defenses that these ecosystems provide against coastal erosion and storm surges. The global impact of rising sea levels is not a distant threat. It's happening now, and its effects are likely to intensify in the coming decades. The rising tide is a stark reminder of our shared vulnerability and the urgent need for collective action. Climate change is a challenge that transcends borders, and it demands a unified response. We can't afford to ignore the rising tide. The survival of our planet, our home, depends on our actions today. The rising tide is a global problem and it requires a global solution. Despite the dire predictions, nations like the Maldives are not giving up without a fight. In the face of rising sea levels, Maldives and other island nations are fighting back with a blend of innovative strategies and traditional techniques. One of the most common methods employed is the construction of seawalls. These barriers serve as a shield, protecting the islands from the relentless onslaught of the waves. Yet this is only a temporary solution, a band-aid on a much deeper wound. Further, in an audacious display of human tenacity, the Maldivian government has undertaken a project to literally raise the islands. By pumping sand from the surrounding seabed, the government aims to elevate the islands above the rising waters. This Herculean task is not without its challenges, but it demonstrates the lengths to which these nations will go to safeguard their existence. But the fight against rising sea levels extends beyond the boundaries of these threatened islands. On a global scale, nations are coming together to tackle the root cause of the problem: greenhouse gas emissions. The Paris Agreement, for instance, has been a rallying point for countries to commit to reducing their carbon footprint. The goal? To limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Such international initiatives are crucial in our collective efforts to curb the rise of the oceans. Additionally, technological advancements are being harnessed to combat this global challenge. From carbon capture and storage technologies to the development of renewable energy sources, we are seeing a surge in solutions that aim to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and keep our planet's temperature in check. These actions, although challenging, are essential for the survival of island nations and coastal cities alike. They serve as an inspiring testament to our capacity to adapt and innovate in the face of adversity. These efforts are a beacon of hope in a seemingly overwhelming situation, and they remind us that while the threat is real, so too is our collective will to overcome it. While the problem might seem insurmountable, there are ways that all of us can contribute to the solution. The issue of rising sea levels, while vast and complex, is not beyond our influence. Each of us holds a piece of the puzzle in our hands. We can make a difference. It starts with our personal choices, our daily habits. We can reduce our carbon footprints, the total amount of greenhouse gases that we individually produce, largely from burning fossil fuels for electricity, heat, and transportation. Simple actions like choosing to walk or bike instead of driving, or opting for energy-efficient appliances, can make a significant difference. Next, we can support climate-friendly policies. Voting for leaders who prioritize environmental protection and pushing for legislation that promotes renewable energy can help slow the rise of global temperatures. We can also advocate for the development of climate adaptation strategies, like the ones being implemented in the Maldives to protect vulnerable coastal communities. We can also spread the word. In this age of social media and instant communication, each of us can be a ripple that creates a wave. Share facts about climate change and stories of its impacts. Talk about the efforts being made to combat it. Encourage your friends, family, and followers to take action. And don't forget the power of your wallet. Support businesses that are committed to sustainability. Patronize companies that invest in renewable energy, that minimize waste, that prioritize the health of our planet over profits. Remember, change happens when enough people decide that the status quo is no longer acceptable. It happens when we stand up, step forward and say, I want to be part of the solution. Every small action counts. The choices we make, the votes we cast, the messages we share, the businesses we support, they all add up. They send a message, loud and clear, that we care about our planet, that we want to protect it for future generations. Every small action counts. Together, we can turn the tide and ensure a safe future for all. As we stand at the brink of a global crisis, the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we willing to let entire nations disappear under the rising tide? In the face of this planetary challenge, we've journeyed across the globe, from the paradisiacal Maldives to bustling coastal cities, witnessing the effects of rising sea levels. We've seen how the Maldives, a country that sits merely an average of 2.5 meters above sea level, grapples with the harsh reality of climate change, battling against time and tide to preserve their homeland. The Maldives isn't alone. Many low-lying island nations are in the same boat, pun unintended. They've become the front line of climate change, their very existence threatened by the rising seas. Yet they continue to fight, employing innovative adaptation strategies, from constructing artificial islands to implementing extensive coastal defenses. But these efforts are not enough. As global temperatures continue to rise, so do our oceans, threatening to submerge not just small islands but large coastal cities. New York, London, Shanghai, they could all share the same fate if we don't act now. We've also explored the various efforts made to mitigate increasing global temperatures. From renewable energy initiatives to reforestation projects, every action counts. But time is of the essence. The clock is ticking, and we need more than just mitigation. We need a global commitment, a collective action. What can we do, you may ask? Plenty. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Take public transportation, plant a tree, support renewable energy. Every small step we take in our daily lives can contribute to a larger global impact. The future of the Maldives and other island nations hangs in the balance. The stakes are high and the clock is ticking. It's time to rise to the challenge. It's time to act, not tomorrow, but today. We have the power to make a difference. The question is, are we willing to use it? Because if we don't, the price we'd have to pay could be the loss of entire nations. The future of the Maldives and other island nations hangs in the balance. It's time to act, not tomorrow, but today.